If you clicked on this, it's probably because you want to make or are in the process of making your first feature film. And I'm coming to you as somebody who just did that. The biggest thing that I see that people need to realize before they go into making a movie is ambition can actually be your greatest enemy. And you might be thinking, what? Isn't ambition like a good thing? Isn't it even the most important thing? I'm talking about unchecked ambition. How many times have you heard someone say, you've got to be willing to risk it all to achieve your dreams? But think about what that actually means. That means your financial well-being, your security, your health. Generally, it means you have to be willing to lose everything. And I'm here to say, I don't think that's necessary. Certainly not for a movie. Speaking of which, my directorial debut, Sight Unseen, is now available to rent on VOD at all of these places. It's a horror film about three siblings who inherit their estranged father's rural cabin, and as they argue about whether to keep or sell the cabin, strange occurrences start to happen all around them. Also, it's only 84 minutes long, so I'm not going to waste your time. So it took almost 2.5 years from the point we wrote the script to the point the film is finally being released. And basically what I learned is that it's not a great idea. There are so many things you could do instead. Have you considered podcasting? And if your goal is just to make money, pretty much any other thing besides making a feature film would make more sense. But let's be honest, you're going to do it anyway. How do I know? Because we're the same. We have a compulsion. We can't help it. Making an independent film in 2026 might not be the smartest idea in the world. It's, in fact, one of the dumbest ideas in the world. But it doesn't have to be the worst idea in the world. The way to keep it from being the worst decision of your life is to rein in your ambition. The problem with ambition is how much it overlaps with delusion. Making a movie means you're quite literally creating something out of nothing. And that does sound romantic and grand and beautiful and magical, but it's also extremely difficult. And if you're not very careful and disciplined, it can get away from you very quickly, and you can end up spending more money than you have, alienating everyone you love, and not even finishing the damn movie. And I know this because I've seen it happen several times. Right after I graduated college, I worked as a lower-level crew member, usually a PA, on 7 low-budget independent feature films. The budgets were around $100,000 to $200,000 each. Of those 7 films, only 2 got released, and those were both just direct-to-video. But that's still better than the other 5, which never got released at all. 2 of them didn't even finish shooting. And the people involved in most of these movies were passionate, just like me. They were ambitious. They did not set out to fail. This was not some the producers situation. Having seen how often it can all go wrong, I knew before making our movie what we had to do to avoid those mistakes. But even so, we still had a few close calls. One in particular almost killed the movie entirely. I will get back to that one a little bit later. So the first part of responsible ambition is deciding what type of movie to make. Our original script was actually much more, say it with me, ambitious. It was a gory slasher movie with a large cast, multiple locations, and complex practical in-camera effects. We actually started pre-production on that script, but as we researched the cost of the practical effects, what location options we had, potential shooting schedules, and our casting options, we realized there was just no way we'd be able to pull it off with the money we had in a way that was up to our standards. So we made the difficult choice to put that script aside, even though we loved it. I dusted off an older idea and we reworked it to fit within the parameters of our budget. That means we specifically chose to keep the film in one location. We kept it focused on 3 leads and we had 3 supporting roles. We also went with a haunted house story because that meant fewer practical and visual effects. After all, the most effective haunted house scenes are the ones where you don't really see that much. In other words, cheap. Alright, so let's talk about how it all almost went to shit anyway. We had a crew member quit 4 days into production for personal reasons. Given that we only had 10 crew members to begin with, losing one was devastating. We were already running a little behind, so this really set us back. With only 11 days of principal photography scheduled, it was increasingly clear that we were not going to finish the movie on our current trajectory. One decision we had made early in pre-production was to shoot in rural Maine. Our budget was too small to qualify for any state tax incentives, so Maine's lack of incentives didn't really matter anyway. Plus, I'm from there originally, and I have friends and family who I knew I could rely on to help with the production. The flip side of that is that Maine, especially rural Maine, doesn't have any filmmaking infrastructure. There's a reason there's no Stephen King movies or shows shot there, even though they're all based there. But we knew this all ahead of time, and we had factored in how much money we'd save by not having to worry about filming permits, permissions, noise pollution, and interruptions from looky-loos. We just knew that we had to have everything we needed in place before we headed into the woods. When the crew member quit, we did convince him to let us rent his gear, and that turned the production-ending catastrophe into a mere production-interrupting mess. If he hadn't rented us his gear, we would have been absolutely but seeing as how we were already behind schedule and now we were down a set of experienced hands, we started falling even further behind. Since that crew member left on day 4, we only actually had 2 more days of shooting until our SAG-mandated day off. Now, at first, we were a little annoyed that we even had to take that day off, since according to union rules, we still had to pay the actors for the day. But it ended up being a huge blessing in disguise. While the cast and crew took the day off and drove down to the coast and did touristy stuff, my wife and I holed up in the cabin and we rewrote the remaining scenes of the script. And here's where I finally get back to my initial point about ambition. We had tough choices to make. Do we plow ahead with the film as it's written, the script we love, and just hope that it all works out? Or do we make the hard choices now that will give us a fighting chance of actually finishing the film? I'd seen what happens when people just stick their heads in the sand and hope it all works out. It never does. So we made those hard choices. We cut entire scenes. We trimmed dialogue. We combined 2 scenes into one, so we only had 1 lighting setup instead of 2 or 3. We moved some scenes from night to day. We even cut an entire horror sequence. In total, our script went from 94 pages down to 82 pages. And it worked. We finished the movie. In some ways, it was a bummer. I wish we could have filmed that horror sequence we cut. I think it would have been a really fun scene. But it was set in a room that was already being used for crew quarters and storage. And taking all the stuff out, dressing it, lighting it, that would have taken hours that we just didn't have. But in a lot of other cases, I think the edits we made actually strengthened the movie. By the end of that first week, we'd had the benefit of seeing how the characters interact with each other, what was working, what worked less well, and most importantly, the speed and efficacy of the crew. For instance, we saw how everybody slowed down after our lunch breaks each day. So we invested in more Red Bulls, and we reworked the shooting schedule to factor in everyone's sleepiness, moving our more ambitious scenes to shoot before lunch. We blacked out all the cabin windows so we could start shooting night scenes earlier in the afternoon. Now, I don't want to be totally dishonest here. We also added an entire extra day to our schedule. And I swear I'm telling the truth when I say that we had actually factored in a possible 12th day from the beginning. We always knew 11 days were going to be really tight. And we told the cast and crew ahead of time that we might want to use a 12th day for pickups and reshoots if needed. Instead, it ended up being basically an entire shoot day. And we didn't really end up getting a pickup day at all. Fortunately, because we'd spent so much time planning out the shot list and pre-production, we really didn't end up with very many missing shots. The film edited together quite nicely. And that's the crux of it. You hope for the best, but you plan for the worst. An 11-day shoot would have brought us in under our budget. 12 days brought us in on the upper end of our budget. It was more than we wanted to spend, but crucially, it was not more than we were able to spend. As a result, we didn't go into any debt, we didn't have to max out any credit cards, and we didn't have to beg friends or family members for loans. There's the old saying about not letting perfect be the enemy of good enough, and that really applies to filmmaking. It's easy to double down and insist that every single shot, every single line is precious and essential, that I have to get everything. And that's where ambition and magical thinking leads you astray. Even movies with $200 million budgets still almost never get everything they want. So if you start out with the goal to finish the movie no matter what, rather than to get the perfect version of your movie no matter what, you will be in much better shape. All right, so now we're going to talk about budgets. The main problem with pretty much all advice about making movies is that every single movie is different. And so, with that in mind, my second piece of advice is don't compare your film, and more specifically your production, to anyone else's. As you get into pre-production on your movie, you'll be faced with a wide variety of opinions. One of the most common opinions I saw is that making a movie for X amount of money is impossible. It can't be done. Don't even try. And what's really funny about this opinion is that no one really can agree on what exactly that amount of money is. I've seen people say anything under 20,000 is not worth doing. Anything under 100,000, a million, 5 million. Our budget was about $85,000, $86,000. 70,000 of that was our own money. The remaining 16,000 was from a crowdfunding campaign that we did. I was told specifically that $86,000 was not enough money to make a feature film. And yeah, I would have loved to have had more money. That would have made things a lot easier. But is it enough to make a feature film? Well, yeah, we made a feature film. It's done. It's available for rent now. It stars professional actors. We paid everyone on that set. We fed everyone. We housed them. It's a movie. Robert Rodriguez famously made El Mariachi for $7,000. And you might say, well, sure, that's in $1992. And yeah, you're right. Adjusted for inflation, that's about $16,000 to $17,000 today. That's still pretty damn cheap. And Robert had to shoot on actual film. So movies can still be made. You can and you should make your movie as long as you're smart about it. Now, how much you're willing or able to spend on your movie is a decision you have to make for yourself. But a good way to think about it is to approach it like you would approach active investing in the stock market. The number one thing everyone tells you before you start investing in stocks, bonds, crypto, whatever, is to never invest more than you're willing to lose. And that's very true of filmmaking. When my wife and I set our budget at $86,000, we did so with the understanding that we would likely never see a dime of that money again. So we chose a number that would not bankrupt us if that ended up being the case. Even if you have the next paranormal activity on your hands, it's really important to remember that it takes a long time to see a return on your investment. We shot Sight Unseen in fall of 2024. It didn't come out until May of 2026. The earliest we'll start seeing any returns at all is somewhere in the summer and fall of 2026, nearly 2 years later. There's also the fact that the distributor takes their cut. If you get a theatrical release, the exhibitors take their cut. In our case, we're going to owe residuals to the actors through our contract with SAG. Unless you retain full rights to your movie, it's shockingly hard to make much money even if you have a huge success on your hands. And it's very difficult, time-consuming, and expensive to mount a self-distribution campaign. It's not impossible. Most recently, Markiplier did that with Iron Lung, but Markiplier has 40 million subscribers. Do you? I certainly don't. Like and subscribe, by the way. The most important thing to take away from all of this is that we didn't bankrupt ourselves making Sight Unseen. We have $70,000 fewer dollars today than we did in 2024, but we're okay because we set that number and we stuck to it. And that's where the ambition thing comes back again. We encountered issues during the production that more money would have helped solve. Our budget could have easily ballooned to $100,000, $120,000, even $200,000, but we didn't let that happen because spending that much money would have put us in dire financial straits. There were a few times we thought about screw it, let's just throw it down on a credit card. Let's just dip into the rest of our savings. And if we had done that, we would have had zero savings left. Especially given how things are going these days, I'm really glad we didn't do that. The truth is, there is no minimum amount of money you need to make a feature film, as long as you don't succumb to magical thinking and unrealistic ambition. Being able to make a movie is, at the end of the day, a luxury. And I don't want to make it sound like no matter what your situation is, you can go make a movie. So I do want to acknowledge that. I just want to make sure that if you do want to make a movie, you don't get discouraged by naysayers and negative Nancy's and people on f***ing Reddit tell you that you can't. A lot of those people are saying that because they've either failed or they've seen failure, and that is possible. You might fail. And if that happens, if you don't finish the movie or it never gets released, you need to be in a position where that failure doesn't ruin your entire life. Like I said, Sight Unseen hasn't made us any money yet, and it probably never will. We saw it as an investment in our careers, as something we could point to hopefully get more gigs in the future. And so far, that does seem to be working out. So let me know if you're planning to make a movie. I'm happy to give more specific advice and suggestions. The circumstances behind every movie are different, but some things are universal. So go, take a big swing. Be ambitious, just don't succumb to magical thinking. Okay, thanks for watching. There are links to rent Sight Unseen on the platform of your choice in the description below. We'd love it if you rented it. We'd love to get some of our money back. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on set.